Hello and welcome to the presentation on studying A-Level Business Studies at Rugby High School 2021 to 2023. My name is Mr. Cox, I'm the Head of Economics, and thank you for taking some time with me today for me to take you through what we can offer you if you decide to take the Business Studies A-Level. So why A-Level Business Studies? I think A-Level Business Studies is so vital to so many students, just because in the future you might not necessarily know exactly what career you want to head into. You might not have decided that yet. But the reality of it is that the majority of students will end up working for a business of one type or another. As a result, I think it's really useful to have an understanding of the inner workings of a business, because some of the skills are really transferable to you and your lives. So, for example, we look at recruitment from the point of view of a business. And I think by having a greater understanding of how businesses recruit staff, it can help students to know exactly what they need to do when applying for jobs. We look at financial management for businesses, skills that are transferable into managing your own personal finances. Just always looking at the real life side of the subject, and of course talking about the world around us and having a greater understanding, because we want to be able to debate these things. We want to be able to understand these things that are taking place, because hopefully we can learn from the mistakes of other businesses, or we can learn from the great decisions that some businesses make. All these things we cover throughout the course, which I think make it such a vital thing for people to study. On the subject of real-life business stories, just to give a few example questions of things that we talk about over the next couple of slides. Firstly, something like, why did Thomas Cook fail? So obviously Thomas Cook, big successful company over so many years. Why did they suddenly end up going bust just over a year ago? Where did they go wrong with regards to their financial management? Where did they go wrong in terms of targeting their customers? Are there lessons that can be learnt from that? Was it all completely their fault? Were there external factors that also fed into Thomas Cook's failure? All these sorts of things, as we go through the course, we can look at this from multiple different angles and try and come up with an evaluative response as to what increased the likelihood of Thomas Cook failing and whether other businesses are running similar risks. Sometimes we talk about how businesses might respond to government policies. So things like taxes, like here, when Coca-Cola faced the sugar tax for the first time, how did they respond to it? How did they tell their customers about how they were responding to it? Has it significantly changed the way Coca-Cola does business? We'll look at it from a marketing point of view. We'll look at it from a financial point of view. We'll look at it from an external influences point of view to see, has that changed the way the Coca-Cola company has to operate in the UK and in other countries? So what do we actually do? Well, when it comes to business, as the name suggests, business studies, it is the study of businesses. We are looking completely at the inner workings of a company. We look at the variety of different options that are available to different businesses on a whole plethora of different business activities. We will look at small businesses. We will look at startup companies, compare them to massive global organizations. We will compare the impact that takes place when it comes to just operating in your local market, your domestic market, your international market, and how that impacts upon how the business wants to work, or how the business can work. We will look at different aspects of companies like finance, marketing, production, people, so human resources. A more detailed version of what we look at in the spec is coming up in a couple of slides' time. It's very much about how businesses make their informed decisions and the potential advantages and disadvantages of all the decisions that they make. Looking at what decisions businesses have made in the past and what they have learned from those. Looking at all the potential different possibilities that exist for our modern day companies and trying to see how some businesses succeed whilst other businesses just fall apart. A very popular question that I get asked a lot at this time of year is, what is the difference between business and economics? Now, obviously, we are the business and economics department, and I apologise if you've already had to listen to this because you've looked at the economics presentation. But pretty much, as I've already said, business studies is that idea of looking from the inner workings of a business. So every single bit of theory we talk about is always from the point of view of a company. How will the company react to that change? What different possibilities are there available to the company? So even though we might talk about exchange rates on both business studies and economics, when we talk about exchange rates in economics, we talk about the determinants of the exchange rates. Whereas when we talk about exchange rates from the point of view of business studies, we are talking about how changes in the exchange rate impact upon upon the business itself. And so very much business studies is always from the business's perspective. It's always talking about small scale reactive or progressive strategies that the business might use. Whereas economics, we're looking more at the broader picture. We'll talk about how the government manages the economy. We'll talk about what banks can do to influence business behavior. We'll talk about what the government can do to influence consumers and households. Whereas all the time in business studies, we are talking about how the businesses will respond to those changes. Just to give a very quick applied example of the difference. So supermarkets are increasing their prices. There's inflation taking place in our economy. In economics, when we talk about that, we will explain in detail why this is happening and aim to predict how or what the future may bring for that. We'll talk about how the central bank will fight it. We'll talk about how the government will fight it if they need to. Maybe they don't. From a business point of view, we will talk about what businesses do to try and tackle it. So the reason why Marmite's included here is because you might have heard the news about Marmite battling with Tesco's, about Marmite wanting to increase their prices and Tesco's not allowing them. Or we talk about how the competition in the market, well, supermarkets are increasing their prices, which meant that Aldi and Lidl were able to take advantage of the fact that there was more price competition in the market and how they adapted their marketing policies accordingly. So just to look at the course content, there are 4 themes that you are taught throughout the 2 years. You cover theme 1 and theme 2 in year 1 and theme 3 and theme 4 in year 2. The marketing and people element is, as it suggests, we talk a lot more about the marketing decisions firms make. So how they decide what products they're going to introduce, their pricing strategies, how they're going to advertise it, how they're going to distribute it to customers. And then from the people element, we talk about entrepreneurial skills, what it means to be enterprising. We talk about recruitment and selection of people. That's what we do in theme 1. In theme 2, operations and finance. This is where we do a lot of the maths in year 12. We look at things like profit and loss and break even and cash flow forecasting. We talk about production of a firm, so how firms produce products and the different options available to them producing the products. And then we look a bit at the external influences, so government policy changes, exchange rates, interest rates, things like that. That's covered in year 12. As you can see, the course is taught by 2 teachers. You will usually have 1 teacher for theme 1 and 1 teacher for theme 2. With theme 3 in year 13, business decisions and strategies, that's where we look at how businesses actually set about achieving their aims and objectives. So we look in more detail at sort of their plans for their production process. We look at something called critical path analysis, so how they structure what jobs need to be done and when. We look at investment appraisal, so we look in more detail about the decisions that businesses make when they are deciding which projects to invest in. Again, a bit of maths in Unit 3. Then Unit 4, the global business element, is about taking a business and going across the globe and the benefits and problems that can exist because of trading with other countries or working with other countries, and the opportunities that living in a globalized society actually provides to businesses, both in terms of production and of course in terms of sales. Again, 2 teachers in year 13, 1 for theme 3, 1 for theme 4. For the assessment, A-level economics at RHS, we don't do any coursework. It is all exam-based. All exams are sat at the end of year 13. You will sit 3 papers in total. The first paper assesses theme 1 and theme 4, marketing, people and global business. There is significant overlap between Unit 1 and Unit 4 because you look at marketing from a domestic level and then marketing from an international level. Paper 1 accounts for 35% of your overall grade. It's marked out of 100. You get 2 data response questions. So you get a case study and then you get a series of questions after that, broken down into parts, getting progressively harder and the marks increasing. The final part of both data response questions is an extended open response question, allowing you to try and suggest the best course of action for the business. Usually you're given 2 options and you need to argue the pros and cons of each one before deciding which one is best suited to the business given to you in the case study. 2 of those, an hour on each one. It's a 2-hour paper and it's marked out of 100. Almost exactly the same. Paper 2, still 35% of your overall grade, still 2 data response questions, still each question broken down to a number of parts, with an extended open response question at the end, which gives you 2 options you need to analyse and then evaluate to decide which option is best. Only difference being this covers Theme 2 and Theme 3 content, business activities, decisions and strategy. So, as I talked about before, the maths questions tend to be in this one, the financial questions tend to be in this one because that's taught on both Unit 2 and Unit 3. For Paper 3, as you may know already, A-Level Business Studies is considered a synoptic subject, which means that there is a paper that involves you using knowledge from any part of the syllabus that you study. So you can use the knowledge from Units 1, 2, 3 and or 4 to help to answer questions based on a pre-release case study material. In November of Year 13, the exam board send out some bullet points that tell us an area of the real-life business world that we need to research. We then spend the following 6 months preparing different case study information so that you are able to draw on a number of different examples to support the theory that you would discuss in an exam. You then go into the exam where you can't take the case study information in with you. You can take it in your brain, but not on paper. And then you get 2 data response questions, each worth 50 marks, and it accounts for 30% of your whole grade. You are able to use the case study information that is in the paper, but the best students not only use the case study information that's in the paper, but also the case studies that they have researched themselves over the past 6 months. We do it as a class, but there is some individual research and presentation activities that take place a lot during this unit, just to deepen your understanding of the business situation given to us in the case study material. Building on the cross-curricular skills, I think it's important to say that with business studies, it can go with almost any other subjects that you decide to choose. The skills that you learn in business studies, because they're both quantitative and qualitative, overlap with a lot of other subjects. So in maths, obviously, we're working with data a lot. We are using data to challenge hypotheses, to back up our analysis. Very useful to have a good head for figures. But at the same time, you think about geography, where you're researching and testing theories against stuff that you find out in the field. We do that in business too. Politics, we look at business law. We talk about how different governments support businesses or sometimes work against our businesses. With history, we talk about how businesses have evolved over time and how different political structures in the past have affected the way businesses operate. So really, there's so many different cross-curricular links that we can draw. There's no set pattern of other subjects you have to study when it comes to studying business studies. Business studies allows you to access a wide plethora of different degree choices. There's no sort of set path when it comes to business. Very much a case if you choose what you are interested in. So the business studies course, as I've talked about already, gives you an introduction into marketing and HR and international relations and things like that. Something that you might find a real passion for that you want to take further onto degree. At the same time, a lot of leadership and management courses and now have a grounding in business. So the theories that we cover on the A-level course are useful introductions to what gets covered on a degree level. Also, there's lots of cross-curricular links with other subjects. So things like in geography, where we study development and they study development in geography as well. So it can be very useful. Business is often tied together with lots of other subjects. So quite often people will study a subject with management, a subject with leadership, a subject with accounting and finance. And so it's quite useful to get that grounding in business so you can make an informed decision about which elements you want to study at university. In terms of the entry requirements for A-level business, obviously because of the demands of the course, we want to try and make the course as accessible as possible. Due to the mathematical content and the essay writing style, we do require a grade 6 of both math and English at GCSE. That is so it enables you to access the content and find the subject as enjoyable as possible. We do work with graphs, we do work with figures, as well as writing extended answers, and so those are our entry criteria. Interestingly, for some people, you don't have to have studied business studies before. If it's something where you couldn't take it at GCSE or you just decided not to take it at GCSE, you can still take it at A-level. Obviously, having taken it at GCSE, you get that good sort of grounding. You've already got an understanding of some of the terminology, but very early on we start looking at different concepts that you haven't studied at GCSE. So is it an advantage? Yes. Is it a requirement? No. However, we do request that students who do take business, it's good to have an interest in business news. It's good to have an interest in their ability to keep up with business news, because the subject is ever evolving. Part of it is researching up-to-date business case studies, and so being able to have an appreciation and an ability to follow the up-to-date business news is always encouraged by the department. And I just thought I'd finish up with some comments from A-level students and what they've said about the business studies course. They're here for you to read. If any of you have got any questions or anything and you want to find out more about A-level business studies, then my email address features on the next slide. Please feel free to drop me an email at any time and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Aside from that, I want to thank you for taking the time to find out a little bit more about A-level business with me today, and I look forward to hopefully welcoming you to the course in September. Thanks very much.